Hello and welcome back to the Paul Miners podcast, or thank you for tuning in if you're watching this on YouTube. Now, in this video, I wanted to talk about how to reduce friction in your office space. And the idea for this podcast, this video, came about after my interview with Miles Beckler that I released last week. So if you haven't watched that, definitely go and check that out on the podcast or my channel. And one of the things we talked about in the interview was Miles's recording setup, and we got onto this idea, and this is something that really struck a chord with me, of reducing friction. We were talking about, how do you produce so much content? And he said he tries to reduce friction, reducing obstacles that get in the way of producing that content. And it really struck a chord with me. And I love this idea of thinking about how can I minimize the obstacles that stand between you and your work. And I feel like I've subconsciously been doing this for a fair bit of time. But after the interview, it really got me thinking. And so I went back to try and see if I could make an extra effort to kind of reduce some friction in my own office space. Now, in regards to my office, I actually have two different offices. Usually at the start of my day, I work at a co-working space. I have a permanent desk there in a shared environment. And this is great. It's a great way to socialize and connect with other business owners. But then the second half of my day is usually spent here at home in my home office. It's a great way to get some quiet work done. It's great for content creation like this video, this podcast that I'm making right now, because I can't really record in a shared work environment. So I kind of switch between these two office spaces. Now, today I want to focus primarily on talking about this particular space that I'm in and discuss how I've been able to reduce some friction and hopefully give you some ideas of things you might be able to do to make your working environment more productive. Now, to reduce friction, I feel like you need to start by listing the kinds of things, the type of work that you actually do in your workspace. So aside from answering email, think about what does your work involve? Do you need to make calls and do video conferencing? As a consultant, a lot of my time is spent on calls. Maybe you're a programmer or you do more creative work. So do you need a space to maybe spread out, plan and brainstorm ideas? Or is your work more physical? Are you doing things that require tools? Do you need materials? Are you using your hands? And when you actually think about the kind of work you do and your working style, you can then start to optimize your space for that particular need. So for example, if you're doing creative work, you'll likely want quick access to a whiteboard or stickies or a printer and other materials. You want to have these things quickly on hand, making sure maybe they're within arm's reach, making sure you don't have to walk too far to get to certain things. And so it's all about minimizing the obstacles and steps between you and the tools you need and ultimately the work that you're doing. Now, I do a mix of focused work, content creation, and video conferencing, so I use the different environments, the different offices that I have for these different types of work. I have actually identical setups at home and at my co-working space. So wherever I'm working, I have my MacBook Pro plugged into an external display. I have a Logitech HD webcam that I'm actually recording on right now, and I use that for my consulting calls. And obviously that's all plugged into power. Now, because I'm moving between my co-working space and home pretty frequently, I found there was a lot of friction there because I have to unplug certain things and take them with me. And so to make this transition easier, I actually purchased an extra charger for my MacBook. The webcam, and I have an extra webcam and an extra display. So I have a webcam and a display at work and a separate one at home. And I have a charger at home and at work. And I actually use a little USB-C dongle that plugs everything into my Mac at once. And so with that identical setup, it means I can quickly switch between work or home and the office, and my MacBook can instantly connect to everything I need without having to fumble with lots of different cables and things. Now, when I'm working at home, I'm usually working on content for my podcast and my YouTube channel, so I've optimized this setup for content creation. So for example, my podcasting gear, the microphone that I have here, my mixer, they're on the desk, they're ready to go. All I need to do is plug in one USB cable and I can be set up to record very quickly. I also purchased some cheap little LED, like $5 LED lights from the hardware store, and I've actually velcroed them to the ceiling. I actually did this after my interview with Miles. His lighting was so good. I was like, man, I need some better lighting. So this is a quick little solution I've put together. This is the first video where I'm really testing it, so I'll be interested to see what the finished product looks like. I've got a bit of a challenge here as well because I have a window behind me which throws off the lighting a bit. It's a bit tricky. But with my microphone, my lights, everything's all ready to go. When I'm ready to record a podcast or record a video, I can be plugged in and be recording very quickly. I've eliminated friction between me and doing work, producing content. And so it means this content creation it's less of a daunting task. And I want to add in here that switching between these two different spaces, like I've been talking about, this is definitely a luxury. Most people have just one space. I've purchased this extra gear slowly over time. It's definitely not 100% necessary to do my job, but I just enjoy the change in scenery. I enjoy being able to work in a shared environment and having some focused, quiet space at home. So yeah, just a little kind of disclaimer there. I know that this is probably not the norm for most people. Now, with reducing friction, something I think about next is how do you declutter your space? So this means having no paper, no desk toys, no unnecessary items on my desk. In fact, besides my Mac and my monitor, my display, my keyboard, my mouse, I don't really have much of anything on my desk. And obviously this is a little bit of personal preference. If you want to decorate your desk and have certain things, that's fine. I've got nothing against that. It's just my personal style. I like to declutter as much as I can. And so when I inevitably have to deal with paper, it goes onto my desk temporarily as an indicator that I need to do something with it. So for example, like receipts I've received that I want to store or invoices that need to be paid, they go on my desk, and the act of putting them on my desk tells me I need to do something with that paper. Now, after I've dealt with the paper, it gets scanned if I want to keep it, and I actually use ScanBot, which is an app for iPhone and Android, to scan the receipt, the invoice, the document, whatever it is, and ScanBot will actually scan the document for text, so that document becomes searchable, which is really cool. And I find it's just a lot easier for me to have digital documents because it's easier to store, easier to search for and find later. There's no risk of them getting damaged or lost and just cluttering up your desk. So once I've dealt with my paper, it gets scanned and thrown away. In fact, I run an almost 100% paperless business and lifestyle. The only physical paper I have stored in a file is, I think, our wedding certificate, my citizenship certificate, my New Zealand citizenship certificate, and Jay's, I think, just our birth certificates. All other receipts, invoices, insurance documentation, company documents, everything else is stored in Dropbox digitally, the exception being the actual physical originals of some of these pretty important documents. And so for me, by eliminating clutter and going paperless, my home office is very minimal. It helps me to feel more organized. Physical clutter tends to stress us out, and so if you ever feel overwhelmed, start by tidying up your environment, and I think you'll very quickly start to sort of calm down and feel more at ease. And my final kind of tip around reducing clutter is make it your own as well. Like, naturally, you can customize your space based on how you like to work. So if you like brainstorming on a whiteboard, using sticky notes, or if you like a physical notebook, that's okay. Just because I'm paperless, I'm not saying you have to be too, although I think there are some advantages to that. So I've set up, for example, some shelves behind me. Actually, my wife, Haley, has decorated it for me. She's put all the books up there to just create an interesting background while I'm recording video. I just wanted something a bit more interesting. And actually, just in the last few weeks, you might notice I put up some skateboards as well. There was some empty space behind me on the walls, so I was like, let me throw up some skateboards that we had just lying around in the garage, and hopefully you agree. I don't know, I think they look kind of cool. And I was having like some Wi-Fi issues as well recently. I was getting a bit of a Wi-Fi dead spot here in my office, and it would occasionally drop out in the middle of a call, which when you run an online business is really not ideal. So to remedy this, I actually purchased a Netgear power line, which I've used to set up basically my own private network in my office, and it uses the power line in the walls of the house to transfer the internet from downstairs, where our modem is, up here, so I can have a much faster connection. So yeah, with your space, customize it, do what you need to do to make it your own, make it as a productive space as you can. So thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast, or for watching on YouTube. I would love to hear from you, and I would love to see your space. So if you want to share a picture of what your workspace looks like, please let me know. Head on over to my blog, paulminers.com/112, and I'd love to if you could just comment with a picture of your workspace. I'm always interested to see what other people are doing and draw inspiration from that, so you can help me to improve my space more. So definitely, please connect with me and share your space. All right, that's it from me. Thank you for watching or listening, and I will see you in the next episode.